Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Barakah Kodash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who rule and teach well. And peace and salutations to Ya'akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Ra'aya with another video, and I'm going to start it off in Matthew chapter 24, verse 6. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in divers places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. And this was Yahushai HaMashiach, whom the world ignorantly refers to as so-called Jesus Christ, not only telling his disciples in the past, but telling his disciples today of the prophetic signs to look for, to know that they were living in the last days. And if you have that spiritual eye salve, you can clearly see that these prophetic signs are either taking place or in the process of taking place. And in all actuality, we're living in the last seconds of the last days, before the ending of the rulership of the heathen nations, chiefly by the Edomites or so-called white people, Yahushai's second coming, and the ushering in of the kingdom of heaven, which will last for eternity. And in this video, I'll be profiling a little bit of this video from the Epic Economist's YouTube channel titled, UN Warns of Famines of Biblical Proportions in 2021 as Some Americans Wait 12 hours for food, just to show how close we are to these famines coming. And also, if you've been known to look in the right places, you'll see that there are plenty of reports out there talking about the coming food shortages, food insecurity, and these famines of biblical proportions. In 2019 and 2020, there were historic floods, storms, and other weather events, whether man-made or naturally occurring, that destroyed a lot of U.S. farmers' croplands. Over in China, there were massive floods that destroyed a lot of their croplands, as well as the African swine flu, which killed off hundreds of millions of pigs. And pigs are a major staple of the Chinese's diet. You had those locust swarms, which destroyed a lot of croplands in places like Africa and Pakistan. There are talks of something called a grand solar minimum taking place. And when these lockdowns started from the pandemic, what did you see at the beginning? People going to these different supermarkets and hoarding goods, leading to shortages. And it's only going to get worse from here on out. This is 2 Esdras chapter 16. I'm going to read verse 22 to 23. For many of them that dwell upon the earth shall perish of famine. And I've done videos on the UN talking about famines of biblical proportions in the past, and they said that they expected close to 300 million people globally to be on the verge of starvation, but expected to be much worse than that. And the other that escape the hunger shall the sword destroy. Hey, if you manage to escape starving to death, the only thing you've got to look forward to are these race wars, civil wars, pestilences, a state of martial law, World War III, and ultimately those nuclear missiles being shot to the ends of the earth. And the dead shall be cast out as dung or shit, and there shall be no man to comfort them, for the earth shall be wasted, and the cities shall be cast down. There's going to be so much death, destruction, and dead bodies in that day that you're going to become numb to it, and not give a second thought to all those dead bodies like you don't give a second thought to that turd that you flushed down the toilet. So to you sincere Akim out there, with all these things being the case and quickly coming to pass, you should have all 10 toes down in this truth, pushing this word as hard as you possibly can to make your calling and election sure, and hope to have that protective hedge of Yahweh Bahasham Yahushai over you for when all these calamities really start. But without further ado, let's get back to that video.
If you thought 2020 was a tough year, and you can't wait for it to be over, well, we're sorry to tell you that 2021 doesn't look any more promising. In fact, the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize has been warning global leaders that the world is about to experience a famine of biblical proportions. Meanwhile, in the United States, the number of food-insecure households is fast expanding. The reliance on food banks keeps increasing, and pantries are completely overwhelmed by demand. In some cities, people line up for over 12 hours to get enough for only a couple of meals. In addition to this devastating hunger crisis, lockdowns are expected to get even more strict by January 2021, jeopardizing the survival of struggling businesses and prompting another wave of layoffs. However, the worst part of it is that while some will be able to comfortably sit in their homes and follow the new social distancing restrictions, others who've been left without a source of income are on the brink of eviction and could become homeless. We might be approaching the 2020 end line, but that doesn't mean things will get any easier in 2021. That's exactly what we're going to expose in today's video. So stay with us. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, share it with friends, and subscribe to our channel to keep updated with the next unfoldings of the economic collapse. This year, after lockdowns were enacted around the world, wealthy countries experienced several hardships, often seeing years of economic and social progress being wiped out in the time span of a few weeks. However, poorer countries have been tremendously affected by the total or partial shutdown of their economies, and an alarming share of their populations are already dealing with a dire hunger crisis. And in the face of a second round of lockdowns, their situation could become much worse. This is what David Beasley, the head of the UN World Food Program and winner of the Nobel Peace Prize, has been alerting to global leaders. Touched by the success of the program, Beasley affirmed that one of the biggest advantages of having won the award was that now, instead of being given 10 or 15 minutes, global leaders would allow him up to 45 minutes so he can get into detail about the difficulties the world is about to face when it comes to hunger. He discloses how the prize has given the UN agency a spotlight and megaphone to warn how next year is likely to be worse than this year. And without billions of dollars in aid, Beasley says, we are going to have famines of biblical proportions in 2021. Beasley said this in an interview with the Associated Press, that the work the agency does every day in conflicts and disasters often puts staffers' lives at risk to feed millions of hungry people. But also it sends a message to the world that it's getting worse out there, and that their hardest work is yet to come. He also pointed out that the health crisis has not only worsened, but also generated multiple hunger crises worldwide. And even though in 2020 the situation didn't become as serious as it could have, partly because the government supplied their countries with money, stimulus packages, and the deferral of debt, the hunger crisis was only averted for the time being, but it's far from being resolved. Moreover, with another wave of confirmed cases spreading across the globe, economies are continuing to deteriorate, particularly in low and middle income countries, and another round of lockdowns and shutdowns will exacerbate the impacts of famine even further. That is to say, due to the adverse effects of business shutdowns on the economy, it's likely that the money that was available in 2020 is simply not going to be available in 2021. According to a joint analysis by WFP and the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, 20 countries are likely to face potential spikes in high acute food insecurity in the next 3 to 6 months and require urgent attention. Of those, Yemen, South Sudan, northeastern Nigeria, and Burkina Faso have some areas that have reached a critical hunger situation following years of conflict or other shocks. and any further deterioration in coming months could lead to the risk of famine. The UN agencies reported. Beasley revealed to be very concerned that with deferred debt payments for low and middle income countries resuming in January, plus new lockdowns and the ravaging economic consequences, 2021's going to be a very bad year, he said. According to WFP estimates, nearly $15 billion would be necessary to avoid a tragic hunger crisis next year. $5 billion just to avert famine, and $10 billion to continue executing the agency's global programs, including for malnourished youngsters and school lunches, which are often the only meal many children can get. Although the hunger problem, fortunately, hasn't hit the same level compared to these countries, the fact that one of the world's most powerful nations is also registering disturbingly high rates of food insecurity, especially amongst children, is still worrying. In the U.S., the number of vulnerable households is escalating amid unemployment growth and the absence of federal aid. For instance, in Maryland, where it was registered a 400% increase in applicants to the federal Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also known as food stamps, after unemployment skyrocketed as a result of shutdowns in March. Local news reported that the state is indeed experiencing a hunger crisis. Schools have been trying to reach out to low-income children, providing school breakfast programs to at least help the kids to get food. The rise in Maryland's childhood hunger stressed how breakfast programs in schools are more needed now than ever before. For every 100 low-income students, about 62 are reliant on school meals to be able to eat. Low-income families are becoming increasingly dependent on government programs and food bank assistance to get the supplies they need to feed themselves for a week or two. Now that the holiday season is approaching, thousands of unemployed workers are waiting up to 12 hours at drive-through food banks. This is what's been happening in Texas, where, in the hope of getting one of the 7,000 frozen turkeys that the main distribution center is providing ahead of the holiday festivities, tens of thousands of cars have been lining up outside of the pantries. Last Saturday, Dallas's North Texas Food Bank held a distribution event that gave away over 600,000 pounds of food given away, including 7,000 frozen turkeys. The organization said it hopes to have given enough food to feed around 25,000 people. Photos of the event show.
And best believe that the powers that be are going to utilize these coming famines to force you people to take the mark of the beast, which is the RFID/NFC microchip implant. And when these famines do hit, it's going to be really bad, and you people are going to get caught out here with your ass in the breeze, because unlike the Great Depression, when people were living hard, but they at least knew how to be self-sufficient and live off the land, the majority of you people suck off the teat of the government and these different corporations and expect everything to be handed to you. You go to the supermarkets to get whatever you want, whenever you want. You call up Uber Eats, etc., etc. You have that microwave mentality.
That to attend demand, it was necessary to split the cars into 4 different lines. NTFB spokeswoman Anna Kurian said the turnout demonstrates that the need for food has certainly increased in the state, saying 40% of the folks coming through our partners' doors are doing so for the first time, she told CNN, which means many who managed to stay afloat until recent months have been progressively facing financial difficulties. In Texas alone, nearly 3.8 million people have filed for unemployment relief since March. The state's unemployment rate remains more than double what it was at the start of the year. According to the Texas Workforce Commission, the state's unemployment rate in September was at 8.3%, marking an increase from 6.8% in August. Economists say this surge is an example of how some industries that had hoped to overcome the health crisis-induced economic recession have not yet been able to do so, and have instead just informed they'll be letting go a large number of employees by the end of the year. On the same note, A recent report has found that states that were hit the hardest by food insecurity this year are the same that used to suffer from this issue before the economic meltdown had started. Mississippi, Arkansas, Alabama, Louisiana, and New Mexico are recording even higher rates, with places such as Jefferson County, Mississippi, presenting the highest food insecurity rate in the country, approximately 30.4%. However, the recession disproportionately affected other states such as Nevada, which jumped from the 20th to the 8th highest food insecurity rate by state. Craig Gunderson, a renowned professor in the Department of Agricultural and Consumer Economics at the University of Illinois, explained that in areas like Nevada, which has a strong emphasis on the service industry and tourism, there will be substantially higher rates of increase in food insecurity than in areas with fewer service sector workers. Furthermore, some of these jobs may not come back. Tourism may be permanently down in the United States, so these impacts could also have longer-term ramifications. Also known for its celebrated touristic attractions and its iconic hospitality sector, the once imposing New York City's economy has been destroyed by the mandatory business closures that ended up in permanent closures and were translated into more layoffs. According to Feeding America, the nation's largest hunger relief organization, about 11% of New Yorkers already struggled putting food on the table in 2018. But this number is expected to hit 19% by the end of this year. Even after a vaccine is approved and largely distributed, it'll still take a while for the food crisis to end as well. The city's food pantries are totally overwhelmed. A new study found New York wasn't prepared for a food crisis of this magnitude and this duration. Emergency food programs were always intended to be a temporary solution, said the professor at the CUNY School of Public Health, Nicholas Freudenberg. He says, especially when the demand has gone up so much, the capacity of that temporary solution to meet the need is even less so. And so I'm concerned that the city has not come up with more sustainable solutions to keep up with the increase in food insecurity. Likewise, the volunteer coordinator at Project Hospitality, Gloria Novoa, highlighted that many of those that have recently become food insecure in the state are part of a new demographic of the working class that she calls the working poor. Novoa.
That's it with this video. And if food shortages weren't bad enough, in that day, you people out there are going to have to be prepared to fight to the death to keep your hands on whatever food and other goods you have left, due to these other people out here who are going to be desperately looking to get their hands on whatever they can get their hands on. And when a person's stomach is touching their back and they have to watch their loved ones starve to death, you're going to see just how primal and dog-eat-dog these people can get. This is 2 Esdras chapter 15, verse 19. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword. The modern day sword being the gun, as well as whatever else these people are going to be using in that day. Knives, sticks, bats, clubs, brass knuckles, chains, Molotov cocktails, you name it, and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread or food and for great tribulation. And you're going to be lucky if they only take your food in that day. It's going to get so diabolical out here that more often than not, they're going to take your stuff, put you to death, and spoil your loved ones, especially if you've got a pretty wife, daughter, and even son. But to you sincere Akim out there, don't be afraid when these things begin to come to pass, because as long as you're doing what Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai commanded you to do, he said in Isaiah 65 that his servants would eat. This is Isaiah 65, verse 13 to 14. Therefore, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, behold, my servants shall eat, but ye shall be hungry. Behold, my servants shall drink, but ye shall be thirsty. Behold, my servants shall rejoice, but ye shall be ashamed. these famines, pestilences, race wars, civil war, and martial law are mainly for these other heathen nations out here, and 2/3 of the nation of Israel who are hard-headed and have refused to return under your power. All of this is the judgment from Yahweh Bahasham Yahushai for all the wickedness you people have been committing. Behold, my servants shall sing for joy of heart, but ye shall cry for sorrow of heart, and shall howl for vexation of spirit. And like Yahushai said in the book of Luke, many kings and prophets and great men have desired to see the days that ye see. Hey, the times we're living in right now, the last seconds of these last days, is what every man of the Lord has been diligently waiting for. Because even though bad times would come, if you endured unto the end like a good soldier of Yahushai HaMashiach, you would be saved and be of that elect number and be the first fruits in the kingdom of heaven. So that's it with this video. And with this video, I hope you sincere Akim are edified. Just keep strong and keep pushing this word. We're almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathens, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.